Hey, fight fans, I don't got time for that fucking song. I'm here with a special UFC fighter. I got Katlyn Chookagian, and she's here with Jeff.
Captain Caveman!
Dens, I didn't have time to get Ray or my other co-hosts in here. Fuck them, they missed out. What's going on, Katlyn? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. You were just up in Buffalo and Rochester. What did you do up here?
Yeah, I'm actually still here now. I'm in Rochester for the weekend. I did two seminars there, and then one in Buffalo, and then doing for the UFC 209. We're doing the meet and greet.
Awesome, awesome.
So, yeah.
Are you flying out there to do the meet and greet, or are you doing it up in Rochester?
That's in Rochester.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I flew out from New Jersey, so it was a quick hour flight.
Awesome. Well, you're coming back again one more time for UFC 210. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, on April 8th, I'm fighting at 210 at Buffalo. It's fighting against Irene Aldana. She's from Mexico. It's her second UFC fight, so this is my third. So we're kind of both newcomers for the division. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I have one of my other teammates, Chris Wyman's on the card as well, and a couple other people that I know, Gregor Gillespie. So yeah, it should be good. I'm excited to be kind of close to home.
That's awesome to fight so close to home, and it's great for us to actually see a card in Buffalo. I'll be there. I'll be watching you. You've actually beat up a couple of my teammates, so I've been watching you. You beat up in the amateurs. You beat up Valerie Ozpaz. Can you talk about that fight a little bit? She listens, so I'm sure she'd like to hear from you how that fight went for you guys.
That was my last amateur fight. So yeah, I think that was my last one right before I went pro. I think I had 7 amateur fights. But yeah, I mean, I fought like so many, and amateurs I fought so many times in a short amount of time, so kind of hard to remember every single fight. But yeah, that was my last one. I think it was a decision in Pennsylvania. Yeah,
it was a tough fight for her too. She had it was a good tough fight. And then your pro debut, you fought one of my good friends' girlfriends, or actually his wife now, Rebecca Heinzman. How was that fight?
Oh, that was good. I think that wasn't that long after. They were all pretty close. I made my debut with CFFC. And that was in Philadelphia. Most of my pro fights were for CFFC. My first 2, and then my last couple were for there. So I like fighting for that promotion a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they were good at helping. They were really good at helping find other girl opponents, because sometimes that can be difficult. So they were really good with that, and I like fighting for them. Yeah,
Rebecca ends up. She's been fighting over in China, and she fights for FC1 and all those big shows over there now too. So you guys.
Yeah, I remember another girl I knew was looking for a fight, and I had mentioned her name. I was like, oh, what about her? I'm like, she's about the same amount of fights or whatever, and they're like, oh, she's in China or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, never mind. It's kind of far.
Yeah, her and my buddy, they just packed up their stuff and they went over to China and they started living there and fighting there. It was amazing. That's really super
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you go from being on a local regional level to making the UFC?
It all happened pretty quick. I mean, I was fighting at for pro. I was fighting at 125. I was just kind of when I first went pro, I tried going down 115, and that was my first pro fight, and I didn't make weight for that fight. So then I was realizing that wasn't the right weight class for me. So I was staying at 125, and I was like, you know what, this is the best weight class for me. And I was just sitting there, seeing what was going on with that division. Obviously they didn't have it in the UFC. So I was like, I want to get as much experience as I can before, I think about those bigger shows, and then maybe by then they'll add it. But I was going, I think it was 7-0 for pro, and they still weren't adding it. And then Bellator added the 125, and I was trying to get it there, but they didn't sign me. They asked them, me and my managers bugged them for a long time, and they were signing girls with no fights, signing girls with 2 fights, and I was like, ranked like number 3 for 125, and they weren't signing me, for whatever reason. I think they wanted to like sign girls with like a little bit less fights to help build them up. But so I was like, all right, well, there's nothing really for me. I was never really into I never signed with Invicta just because for Invicta I looked at it, they weren't getting paid any more than I was at CFFC. At CFFC I was kind of the only girl, and I was getting good good promotion there. And I was worried that if I fought for Invicta that, I wouldn't get to fight as often. CFFC I fight like four times a year. Sometimes I don't even know if Invicta has 4 shows a year, and then getting on every card's pretty tough. So yeah, then I was like, what else am I going to do here? Nothing's going on. And I was like, I'm just going to go up to 135. There's nothing else here. So I want to make moves and do bigger things. So I told my managers, I was like, I'm just going to go to 135. Maybe I'd get one fight. But they got in contact with Sean Shelby, and they're like, all right, you're signed with UFC. I'm like, oh, okay. That was like the next day. And then the next day they're like, you're fighting in 2 weeks. I was like, oh, okay. So it kind of all happened really quick.
That's awesome. That's usually the way it seems to happen a lot. And for entering into UFC, if you're not a huge name or you're killing everybody, they're like, we need a fight in 2 weeks. You want to come? And then you got to make your way into the UFC.
Yeah. And luckily, since I was moving up to 35, like the nice thing about that, is there's not really any weight cut for me. So I could take a fight on a day, like I can fight at any time. Day notice, 2 days notice, so that's the one nice thing about that. So, that makes up for giving up the weight.
Have you put a lot of size on since moving up to 135? Because I seen you today and you look like a pretty solid 135er.
A little bit. I mean, I walk around, I'm tall, so I mean, that kind of makes up for it. But I mean, I used to walk around like 38, and now I walk around like 42. So
right, so you're still pretty small for that weight.
Yeah, I mean, like after last week after training, I'm like 38. So I'm trying to put on more, but put it on right, not just put it on, because I can definitely put on the weight if you want me to eat junk food and stuff. I could definitely do that, but trying to put it on right. But I'm taller, so I think that makes up for it. So even if my weight's a little bit lower, at least I have the height advantage. I'm still probably one of the tallest girls in the division, even at 135.
When I met you today, I was really honestly surprised by how tall you were, and your shoulders are very broad too. I mean, they're not like huge and muscular, but they're very broad.
My parents are swimmers, so I get that a lot.
You got the perfect body frame for the triangles that we were working on today.
Yeah.
So you better watch out. They're coming.
Yeah, always coming.
What do you prefer? Do you like to stand and bang a little bit, or do you like to mess around on the ground? What's more fun for you in the cage, not training?
It's really different. I kind of go through phases, and it's the same thing with training, and then same thing in my fights. My last couple fights I've been kind of more into the standing, but before that, I was getting really into like jiu-jitsu. So it's kind of just depends. Like I go through phases of like 2 fights where I'm like liking doing striking more, liking jiu-jitsu. It's the same thing. Like when you're training, sometimes I tend to like when I'm not in camp. When I'm in camp, I space everything out, and I have my regiments of doing every aspect. But when I'm not in camp, sometimes I'll find myself, wanting to go to jiu-jitsu class like twice a day, and then other times I'm like, I don't really feel like training jiu-jitsu. I'm getting into boxing or Muay Thai. But I mean, like for this camp, I don't know. I've just been doing everything. It literally changes day by day. One day I'll spar, and I'm just focusing on striking. I'm like, I like this better. And then the next day I like jiu-jitsu more. So that's a good problem to have.
When you're going through camp, do you train specifically for your opponent? Like these are combinations going to use against this opponent, and when you're on the ground, these are the positions we're going to be in on the ground? Or is it you're just trying to make yourself better in training?
Yeah, I try. A little bit like, my head coach is like really kind of crazy with codes and everything, and he studies film a lot, which I'm grateful that he does that, because I don't really do that, so I kind of leave that up to him. But for me, I try to focus more on what I like to do, and when I train, I try not to adjust too much for an opponent. If I was fighting like a lefty, I'd spar lefties and that type, like kind of general stuff. But I like to try to stay to my game, so I think that helps me stay more offensive rather than defensive and worrying about the other opponent.
Right. I think that's where the two trends are going right now in high level MMA. A lot of guys are either specifically training for this one opponent, or they're training to make their game, implement their game. And it's always fascinating to see which fighters are doing what.
Yeah, and I think it's, I don't think one way is right or wrong. I think it just depends on the fighter. Like, I just know for me mentally, like I get more of an advantage if I stay in an offensive state of mind and I worry about myself instead of worrying about what they're doing. Because then if they don't do that, we practice, 8 weeks on doing one thing, and then they come out and they don't do that. Then you're like, oh, well, now what? So I like, just for me, I like staying offensive and worrying about what I want to do and just pushing that pace.
That's super cool. You came in with the FCP guys. How did they get you into town? I mean, you're a big name star now, and you're hanging out with us Buffalonians.
Yeah, well, I'm managed by Nick Diaz. We have the same manager and stuff. So he had come out here, a couple months ago and stuff, and met them. So I, through mutual friends and stuff, we just kind of met up with them, and they knew that I was semi-local, coming from New Jersey, and since I was fighting here, they, we kind of linked up through them and just brought me out here this weekend. So it's been a lot of fun. I mean,
it was super awesome to meet you. Does Nick Diaz know that you stole his Stockton Slap? I mean, today at the seminar we threw that right straight, and then we did the Stockton Slap to the head kick.
And I'm like, when I throw the hook, I'm sometimes like, you can just open it up and kind of like slap, and then it's so funny whenever I say that, everyone's like Stockton Slap. I was like, that's a little bit more aggressive than what I'm doing, but yeah, same concept. I don't know if he knows that.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to interrupt your seminar. I know I was already interrupting getting on the phone all the time. I apologize again for that, too.
Oh, no, it's fine.
I was trying to set this up. I got to make this happen to get my UFC star in.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Do you train with Henzo himself, or are you affiliate school? I'm sorry, I didn't catch. You train in New Jersey, right? So affiliate?
Yeah, I'm kind of a training gypsy. I'm all over the place. But yeah, I train at Henzo's Academy in the city. I go there, once a week for John Danaher's class, his no-gi class. And then for jiu-jitsu, I train with him, and then I also train with Ricardo Almeida. So it's all affiliate, but yeah, I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's some really, really good training.
Yeah.
What level in jiu-jitsu are you?
I got my brown belt last year.
Killing it. Looking good. You have an interesting striking style as well. We were going over the seminar. You kind of mix Thai and karate up. Do you have a background in karate, or is it just kind of something you picked up in training?
No, that's what I started. When I started karate when I was like 4 years old, and I did that. The style I did was a little bit kind of like a hybrid. It was between karate and taekwondo. So yeah, I did that as a kid, and then when I got to high school, then I started doing boxing, competing in Golden Gloves. I was actually doing kickboxing, but there seemed to be more girls in boxing at the time, so that's kind of when it drew me into that. So I just kind of jumped around from different martial arts. I went to there, then kickboxing and boxing, and then in college I got into jiu-jitsu.
Awesome. Can you eat, or are you on a pretty regimented diet right now before your fight?
I try to eat healthy. It's a little bit harder because since I'm starting at 135, essentially I could just kind of eat whatever I want and then still make weight. But I try to stay disciplined and diet good, so then that way I get the most out of my camp. So, because when you're cutting weight, you're forced to eat eat really healthy and clean all the time, and you definitely do feel better with that. So yeah, I try to force myself to eat healthy, so that way I can feel better in camp. I was sick. I was sick last week or something. It was last week I got sick, so I was in 5 days I lost 7.5 pounds. So I've been trying to get up a little bit because I got a little too low. I got actually below my weight. So now I'm feeling better, trying to get my weight up a little, and then for the last couple of weeks I'll try to eat healthy.
I was going to make some Buffalo comments, but I want to jump into something real quick. Do you think there needs to be more weight classes for women? Women always steal the show at all the fights. I think there should be more weight classes for women. To be honest, I think women's fights are more exciting. How many more weight classes do you think they need?
I think with the 125, I think that if they have the 25 and then they already have the 45, I think that's pretty good. I mean, if girls I know there's a lot of girls at 105 too.
Yeah, I was gonna
But
say.
it's a little bit smaller, so they could kind of move up to 115, and then all the other girls in between. Like I understand like UFC doesn't want to add more because they don't want to like, they don't want to like draw out the divisions and water them out. But I think that they should kind of look at the women's division in a different angle, where if they have more divisions, they could kind of have different matchups. So whereas the guys, they have like the roster for each weight class. Girls, it might be a little bit more spread out. I think if they had 125, there'd be a lot of girls fighting at 115 and 125, or 125 and 135. So they could definitely have like more style matchups and more, different matchups that will make up for not having as many girls in each division. Because there's a lot of girls that are really good and just kind of fighting out of their weight class. I know there's been like 2 girls in 115 that are like, I can't make it anymore, so I'm not fighting in the UFC anymore. They had like that Valerie Paterno. She just couldn't. She just fought for the title a year ago.
Right.
And now she's like, I can't make 115 anymore, and she's too small for 135. So she's like, I'm going to have to try to fight outside of the promotion. And, it's a shame. I think they could have better fights if girls were fighting in their weight class.
I think so, too. I think women's fights in general steal the show. Most guys, honestly, I don't mean to sound chauvinistic, but here's the God's honest truth. I mean, males are the highest demographic for MMA right now, even though females are getting into it. And guys just want to see the girls fight because, number one, they're waiting for wardrobe malfunction. And number two, the girls go for it. And they always do. So I think the more weight classes, more women's fights are just going to be a better product in the end for the UFC. So I definitely agree that we should get some more weight classes in women's MMA.
Yeah. And I don't think, people are worried about the rankings and all that. Like, just add the divisions and just get fights, It could be a little bit different. It doesn't have to be as traditional as it's been in the past, where they have, a roster for each division. Just add the weight classes and then have the matchups,
What do you think about just making catchweight fights and not even having weight classes in the UFC for some of the women? To bring women in.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if there's not as many people, they might have to do things a little bit differently than they do for the guys, where they have so many people. So
because
just to put on good fights, I think that's a great idea.
There's a lot of great amateur or great professional girls fighting overseas that are 105. They're small girls, small Japanese girls, small Chinese girls that could. You'd be surprised how good their grappling is and their striking is. There's an amazing opportunity to open up the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, you see it at Invicta and stuff. Their 105 pound weight classes. It's always very entertaining. Like, I know Michelle Waterson and Jessica Penne, they were fighting at 105 before the UFC. So definitely they could add more.
While we're talking about weight classes, what do you think about weight cutting?
I don't think it's that bad. I mean,
well, it's not too bad for you.
I mean, it's not bad for me, but even still, like, when I fight 125, I do a weight cut, but I do it right. I don't think it's necessarily bad, because if fighters do it right, for me, when I'm fighting at 125, I have to run every morning. It's different, but I put that work in, so I don't have to kill myself at the end, and I do it right and do it slowly. But also too, I think if someone misses weight too, and I don't think necessarily, like, you don't know what happened. It could have been off by 1 or 2 pounds. Like, you see people make weight easy one time, the next time they don't. I think, if you take a fight a little short notice, if you were hurt or, like, not a serious injury, but if you say, if I'm fighting at 125 and I, like, hurt my ankle and couldn't run for, like, a week and a half or something, nothing that wouldn't be healed by the fight, but I couldn't run for a week and a half, that would totally change the factors. So I think just because someone doesn't make weight once, it's not, you gotta look at each individual case. I mean, now they weigh in almost a day and a half, like, they weigh in the morning, like a day and a half before the fight. So you definitely have enough time to recover, even with that, without the IV. Yeah,
I was just concerned because, I mean, we're losing main events or co-main events even, just like we lost the big fight tonight.
Yeah, I know. I'm bummed out because that was the fight I was most looking forward to. And when I heard that, I was super bummed out. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many fights. The UFC puts on so many fights all the time. How many, like, almost every weekend there's a whole card. So it's almost a numbers game. There's bound to be something that happens every time if there's that many fights. But it's unfortunate. it sucks for the fans, especially when you really want to see the fight. But sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah, you don't agree with Joe Rogan then? I don't know if you know what Joe Rogan's saying, but he's saying that you should be like an established weight, they weigh you in, you certify for a certain weight, almost like amateur wrestling, and then you have to be a certain level of
I've
hydration.
heard him say that. If there's any way they could could do that, and I think that's cool. I'd be down for that, especially if I'm fighting at 35. Knowing now that I'm going up, I'd like knowing that the girls that I'm fighting aren't cutting that much weight, but. If they could do that and find a way to regulate that, which it's the UFC, that I'm sure they have the funds to figure out how to do that, do that somehow, and I think that would be a good idea.
If they can do USADA testing, they can do that for sure.
Yeah.
I just think if you do that though, you're gonna lose champions and you're gonna have to switch weight classes around. You have to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to get a UFC person's opinion on the matter. You hear like the big names talk about it, so it's nice to talk to you about it. What do you think about USADA?
I like it. I think it's great. I don't like, my last 2 fights. I got signed in July this year or last year, and I probably got tested like 7 times since then. But I don't mind it. I mean, I think it's great if they're gonna come once a month or whatever. I'm completely fine with that. If that ensures that everyone else is being safe and not cheating or anything. So I'm all about it. I like it. Sometimes it's annoying. So I gotta remember to we got the app on our phone, so we gotta put in our location all the time. If I go somewhere to my parents' house in Pennsylvania for the weekend, I gotta make sure I put it in case they come to my house. But
I've never heard about that before. Can you actually talk about that app? For my fans?
Yeah, so for if you're in with in the UFC or any athlete, you have to go in every quarter, do quarterly updates on the website and put like your schedule. So a rough estimate, I'll put like every Monday I'm at Henzo's at this time, and Tuesdays or whatever time you're training or you're at work, you put that in there, and then you have the app on your phone. So if it changes, like I'm in Rochester this weekend, I had to go on my phone, open up the app and put for the days that I'm in Rochester. So, and tell them where you are, because if they come to your house, you have they give you like a 2-hour gap to get there. So one time they came to my house because I stayed at Henzo's, I was in the city at the gym an hour later and they were at my house, but you have 2 hours to get there. So there's leeway. So you don't have to be so precise with everything, but if you're out of town or not within 2 hours of your house, then you got to make sure you update it. So sometimes it's just like that. If you go on vacation, you got to remember to update it and stuff. But yeah.
Have they ever come knocking at your door at 3 o'clock in the morning?
No, but I've been good. Usually they always come to my house in the afternoon. And one time they came to, when I was training at Ricardo's, they came because they got 3 of us when we were there at the same time. But actually last Monday they tested me and they came I was ready to leave my house and they came at 7 a.m. and I was like, ugh. I just woke up because I wake up 10 minutes before I leave. So I was like, I just woke up and I just peed and I haven't eaten anything, so it's going to take a while. And she's like, it's okay. I'm used to this. I'll just wait. So we ended up having to sit there for an hour and a half until I could pee again.
So they just do they ever have to draw blood?
Yeah, it's random. I think I've only had to do blood once, but it's completely random when they come. Sometimes they do blood and urine, sometimes just urine.
Do they take you into a clean room or anything, or do they just do it right where you're at?
They do it right there, right where you're at. Yep.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then if they do blood, they'll come, and if you're training, or whatever you're doing, they have to sit there, wait 25 minutes till you're done. You sit there for 25 minutes, and then they can take the blood. Training, at the gym, when you're done, you got to sit there for 25 minutes, and then they do the blood.
Oh, that's rough. That can mess up your whole day of training, really.
Yeah, they try to they're good. They try to work around their schedule. I have the same lady that comes, and she tries to know. She kind of knows my schedule and likes to come when I'm at home in the afternoon. But yeah, it's been a little annoying sometimes.
All right. Well, after your fight, I'm gonna make sure I get you some buffalo chicken wings, because
I know
you can't come to
that's
Buffalo
my
and not have chicken wings, and
yeah.
We're gonna hook you up good.
Yeah.
All right. Were you dating Kyle Seminara for a while, or are you dating Kyle?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
right now we are.
Awesome. I don't know if you guys broke up because God, I knew you were back then.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, we're still dating. He was in my corner for my last fight at Madison Square Garden.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've been working with him for wrestling.
If you guys come in, he's a Buffalo guy, so he knows where to get good wings. But we'll get you guys some wings, and we had her in for the seminar earlier, and we had this beer belt at the gym. This girl got really drunk. We call it Janice because that's her name, Janice. When you get really drunk, and she threatened this other guy, Morgan Kavanaugh, that she was gonna beat him up really, really bad on practice on Monday, and she made this belt. And you'll see a picture of it because I'll post it on here with you wearing it. But you definitely got to earn that belt next time you're in town. So we're gonna get you Janice.
After my win, I'll go for that belt.
For sure, we'll take you out right after. You're like 15 minutes from my house when you fight in UFC, so it'll be perfect. Yeah.
It's awesome too because my boyfriend Kyle went to wrestle at University of Buffalo, so. We got some good roots there.
Yeah, he's a beast too, man. He came up wrestling through there. He's wrestling. I'm a little bit older than him, so I got to watch him come up and wrestle, and he's an amazing athlete, man. That's awesome.
We're lucky at in New York and New Jersey. You get to he gets to train with Weidman. Like the other day, he was there. They was doing a private with Weidman and Volante and Stipe, so they take advantage of him there.
So when's he getting back in the cage?
He's not. He's just staying with the wrestling coach right now.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Only time for one of you guys to fight at a time?
Huh?
Only time for one of you guys to fight at a time?
Yeah. I require too much attention.
Can you actually explain that? How difficult it is to date and fight and diet for someone that wouldn't really understand dating a woman that's a fighter?
Yeah, I mean, I think for some people, either a guy or a girl, I'm lucky because he wrestled at such a high level his whole life. So, he's been through it and understands. And, a lot of his friends, he's really good. His best friend, Ryan LaFleur, fights in the UFC and stuff. So, he's been around it, so he understands. And he actually likes it because he trains jiu-jitsu all the time. When it's time for me to diet, he's like, all right, good. That'll give you motivation. He'll, diet with me and stuff. So, it kind of works out. I got lucky with that because I couldn't imagine if he was just but sometimes during fight week and I'm eating really clean, I'm eat this. I want him to eat sugary foods and and pasta. He's like, I don't want this right now. He's like, I'm full. I'm like, eat this. If I can't eat anything, I want him to eat it for me.
That's awesome. That's actually not such a bad thing. Most people are don't even have that in the house. Yeah, I'm like, eat these cookies. He's like, I'm full. That's amazing because he's got to understand how much physical toil you're going through and emotional. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into a fight because you have a set date. This is a date you're going to get in a cage and throw blows with someone else that's training to knock your teeth out, pretty much. And there's a lot of anxiety and stress, and it can really lead to relationship problems. I actually had a whole show on that before, but it's awesome. No, it's really good. He's really good, and he's really good at understanding athletes and stuff, and he coaches wrestling for fighters, high school kids, college kids, and even little kids. So I think that's one thing that he's really good at for coaching. He understands athletes and how it works and stuff. So I think that helps a lot. Are you guys able to train together, or does it get too competitive?
No, it's good. He lives in Long Island, and I do most of my training in New Jersey. So we train at John Danaher's class together and stuff, and we do that. And then I do wrestling with him about once a week. So we do a little bit. Usually when I'm not in camp and stuff, we train a lot of jiu-jitsu together. So it's good. He's been going to John Danaher's class, and he trains with really good people there. So he's kind of actually getting a little bit better at it than me. So it's a little frustrating. I'm like, wait, how did you learn all that stuff? But it's good. We kind of try to teach each other stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, he's an amazing athlete. He picks stuff up really quick. I mean, you can just tell from wrestling that he just understands the movement on the ground. Are you guys competitive at home and other stuff? Or are you both pretty easy going besides for that? I know me and my wife, you saw us, we trained today, but when we're at home, we're both always trying to win. We neither one of us can lose at anything. Is that like that for you guys, or are you pretty mellow?
Not with each other. I think we're both
super competitive people with like other people, but with each other, we're not really like that at all. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I can let you go with that, I guess.
Yeah.
How interested are you in teaching and coaching when you retire from the sport? You seem pretty good at it today.
Yeah, I like teaching a lot. That's definitely something I want to do after fighting. I like teaching. I tend to like teaching kids a little bit more than adults. So, I like that a little bit more. I also, of course, I love teaching women and stuff, just to try to encourage more women and girls to kind of get into the sport, or even if they're not going to compete, just to, kind of gain more self-confidence, and if I can get them to have more confidence and that they can defend themselves. I like that a lot. But yeah, I really like teaching kids. I like teaching adults too, but adults ask so many questions. They're like, you show them a move, they're like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? What about this? Kids are just like, okay, you show them, and then they shut up, and then they do it. So I like teaching kids a little bit more. I
don't know if you saw when you came in, I was teaching the kids class. They ask a lot of questions, probably more than adults. When I teach the adult class, there's way less questions in the kids class. And the problem is the kids ask questions sometimes I don't even know the answer to. So,
yeah, they ask something so out there. You're just like, I don't know, just go.
Yeah, I don't know why I do that. And then you really think about it. And I asked my professor, and he's like, I don't know either. It's like,
you're like, I didn't think of that.
Kids they ask some good questions sometimes.
Yeah.
Speaking of questions, I have a question for you from John Anthony White, who was also at the seminar. He wants to know, what advice can you give to a young aspiring fighter to reach the level of mixed martial arts that you're at? Or something along the lines of that. Thank you.
I would say the best thing I did, for me, that worked with me, and one of my coaches made sure I did this, is taking your time and not rushing it. Train and get as much competition level, especially at the amateur level, as you can. Just because you win 3 or 4 amateur fights, even if you win in a minute, you're not ready for that for the pros yet. Or maybe you will. You might win a couple pro fights, but then you jump up to that next level. You want to be really ready for that, and I think getting as much competition in as possible. So if you're doing MMA and that's your goal, compete in jiu-jitsu. Every single tournament you should be doing. Even do boxing or kickboxing fights. Because even though that's not your main goal, all that competition is gonna help you with MMA. So I would just compete as much as you can. That's why a lot of times wrestlers have that advantage over other fighters, because not just so much the actual skill of wrestling, but they just have that one-on-one competition, that anxiety, and going against someone and training and going there not knowing who you're going to go against, what to expect. That's a huge mental part of it that I think you only get from experience. Doesn't matter how hard you train or how often you train. I think the only way you get that experience is just by competing. So I would say just compete to everything. Even if you're a striker and you do jiu-jitsu classes but you don't really like it, do every single jiu-jitsu competition that you can, just to help get that mental advantage for MMA.
I got another question along the training lines. Something you said at the seminar that kind of spoke to me too. You talked about hitting pads as opposed to drilling. And you said that sometimes you hit pads, it just turns into a cardio workout, and sometimes it's better to just drill. Can you talk about your philosophy about that a little bit? I thought that was really astute.
Yeah, I was explaining today, sometimes I found myself, I was going striking and then pads, and, sometimes the pads, it's hard to make it realistic. It's hard to make it realistic towards the fight. So I love pads. I do them all the time, but I actually started doing more drilling, striking drilling. So, in Muay Thai classes, they do that a lot. In Muay Thai classes, they do that a lot, but I'm doing MMA. I don't really always train traditional Muay Thai, but do the same thing, with a partner. Sometimes we'll just put on shin guards and gloves and just striking drills like that. So you really understand the range and the distance that you have with your opponent. Because even just shadow boxing, you got to visualize a person in front of you. And it sounds silly and everyone says that, but no one really ever does that. So instead of just pads, I've been adding a lot more of striking drilling and shadow boxing, and I think that kind of helps add a little bit more towards the striking game.
That's funny. That echoes exactly the same stuff that our head MMA coach Eric Herbert tells us over and over and over again. Is envision what you're doing, and we do a lot of singular drilling like that. It's great to hear that a high level UFC fighter does the same thing.
Yeah. That's what I train with Mark Henry, so he's like head coach a lot of good strikers in MMA, and that's what we've all been doing there too. So like Frankie Edgar, Edson Barboza, Chris Weidman, Marlon Moraes and stuff. That's kind of what we do a lot there, and I think that's been helping me a lot.
What are your views on sparring? How much?
I'm sorry?
What are your views on sparring? How much should people be sparring, and how hard?
I spar. This is the way we do it at our camp is at least spar 3 times a week. If you have a fight, you're sparring 3 times a week. We do 2, and every time we spar, you have a headgear on. I don't understand when I see other people sparring and they don't have a headgear on. If you don't have a headgear on, that's not sparring. You're either touching sparring or you're actually going really hard, and that's dangerous. You're not taking care of your head. But putting headgear on, I mean, any professional boxer, Floyd Mayweather, you're not going to see him sparring without a headgear. And I think they know what they're doing. They have more experience, than we do at MMA. But we do two days with 2 days a week with MMA gloves, the safety gloves. So they have the padding, the extra padding.
Like the 8-ounce
on
ones?
The gloves. Yeah, the ones so they have they're not like the ones where your fingers go in.
Right, they're double ones with the open thing that wrap around. They're just like a little bit thicker than the regular ones, but they're the same finger grip, open finger.
Right, so the safety one, they have the same padding as like a boxing glove.
Right.
We use those little gloves 2 days a week, and then one day I just do big gloves, just boxing. And I think for me, I think the best workout, the best thing for me is I go to Gleason's, I go to a boxing gym, and I spar just boxers. No kicks, just boxing. I think to me that helps me get in the best shape. Can't run around, you can't stall, you can't hold on. So I think that's the best thing. But when I spar, we're sparring hard. You know what I mean? We have a headgear on, we have safety gloves on, and we're sparring hard. I'm not wasting a day doing touch sparring and stuff. Some gyms they spar. They're like, oh, I spar every day. I'm like, yeah, well, you're not going really hard every day. I do 3 days hard, and we do, if you have a 3-round fight, you're doing 4 rounds. If you have a 5-round fight, you're doing 6 rounds. We always do 5 minutes, 15 seconds on and 30 seconds off.
So you're doing 1 day of boxing sparring and 2 days of MMA sparring then? You're not really doing any kickboxing?
No. When we do the MMA sparring, it's pretty much the same. We're kicking and stuff.
That's very cool. That's interesting because we're getting 2 series of camps now. There's one camps that really spar 1 time a week or barely spar at all, and then there's the camps that spar a lot. So it's interesting getting all the views on it.
Yeah, and I think it depends too. Some people that have been in the UFC or at the higher level for years and years, and maybe they don't have to spar as much. They took a lot of damage. Their the skills at that point, it's just getting in shape for the fight. So I think for them maybe it's a little bit different. But I think if we spar 3 days a week hard and with a headgear on, safe. You're not being protected and kind of controlling it. I think that's what the thing for me right now and stuff. That's the best thing for me.
I got to ask this question for my wife. You have the little bow tie tattoo on your ankle. Is that a Hello Kitty reference or is that something else?
Yeah, I have the Hello Kitty bow. Yeah, that tattoo. That's my only tattoo. I did it once and it hurt so bad. I'm like, I'm never getting another one again.
That's awesome. So you like Hello Kitty?
Yeah, I'm obsessed.
I think you just made a new biggest fan because my wife is obsessed with Hello Kitty as well. Maybe she can bring you something for the the next fight.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I love Hello Kitty.
I was gonna say something. I totally forgot why. I just had a total mind fart. Must have been all the weed that guy was smoking when he walked by us.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Jesus Christ! It was there was nothing going on, and then all of a sudden we're like, man. I was like, hopefully USADA doesn't walk in. You might get some contact high. I don't know what happened. That's crazy.
Exactly.
That's the first time that's ever happened that I know of at the gym. That's nuts.
Yeah, it was an hour and a half, nothing happened, and then all of a sudden, no one knew even came in, and all of a sudden we got that smell. We're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's got to be those boxer kids. I don't know. Not our boxer kids, the boxer kids that came in to spar with our guys today. Who knows? Yeah. What do you think about drugs overall? You got the same manager as someone that believes in marijuana a lot.
I mean, I think if it's something that's like a natural drug, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, it's up to personal preference at that point. But, you know, any type of, like, other type of stimulants and stuff, I'm not really a fan of. I should stay away from that. But if it's something like marijuana, I'm like, you know, that's just up to a preference. I'm kind of indifferent about it. People like it, they like it. They don't, you know, that's it. I think that's something that should just be up to the person. Just kind of, I don't think it's I think it's less bad than, you know, than like alcohol. Alcohol, I think, is way worse than that. So, you know, it makes a big deal about it.
I agree with you on that 100%. There's a lot of stuff that's banned by USADA that's just crazy. You know, it's just over-the-counter stuff.
Yeah, last week when I was sick, I went to the doctors, and, you know, they didn't, every time, I'd never go to the doctors, but I was so sick, and I went, and I was like, you know, since I'm in camp, maybe I'll go and get, like, in case I have the flu, I was like, I want to go get, like, a Z-Pack or something, and all they did was give me, codeine cough syrup, and I was like, looked at it, I'm like, I can't even take this anyway, from USADA. I was like, so I was just sticking to Advil for that.
I got 2 questions. I'm not sure you're even going to know the answer to this, but, number one, if you take something that the doctors make you take, or something happens to you during a camp, can you get an exemption for that on fight night?
Yeah, but you have to do that before. You have to let them know before you take it, and then it gets approved, and then you can take it.
Right, and then
so even for like that codeine, like the cough syrup, I tell you, like if I could have went, put it in, submitted it, get it approved, and then take it. So if it comes up, it's okay. But I mean, at that point, I was like, all right, my throat doesn't even really hurt. You know, I didn't go through that whole process. But yeah, if you have something, it's like a banned substance that's prescribed to you, you have to put it through them, get it approved, and then you can take it.
And even if you test hot for it, it's still okay if it's on the list?
I'm sorry?
If you do that and you apply for it and then it comes up on your test, you're okay?
Yeah.
As long as it's approved?
I think, yeah, they have to approve of it first.
And my second one's, what if they force you to take an IV after your weigh-in? Like, say, you get rushed to the doctor.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, because I thought they, you know, they're banned, and, like, that's why most people, you know, like in, like, Khabib's case, he went to the hospital the night before weigh-ins and got an IV, but I'm assuming his weight wouldn't be okay. But then it was interesting. I heard, I think it was, like, I heard Ian McCall on, he was, like, on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was saying that one time UFC gave him he was, like, he weighed in and was good, weighed in and made weight and stuff, but he was, like, had a really bad cut. And then the UFC, the doctors gave him an IV, and then he was going to still be able to fight. But I guess because they gave it to him, he could take it. And I was like, and even Joe was like, wait, they gave you one? He's like, that sounds shady. You could tell, like, Ian McCall kind of backed up a little. He's like, well, maybe I wasn't supposed to say that. But he ended up getting sick then and then didn't fight anyway. So, but they didn't know that at the time, I guess. And he even said, he's like, well, maybe they knew I wasn't going to fight, so that's why they gave it to me. But I don't know. But usually, I think if you have an IV for any reason or whatever, you just can't fight. But if it's in camp or whatever, I think you can get it approved.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I thought maybe that's what happened with Khabib, because, you know, he went to the hospital or whatever. I thought maybe they gave him IV and it disqualified him or something. I was just trying to...
Well, I'm assuming, like, once they give it... Yeah, if you're going to the hospital, the doctors probably aren't going to approve for you to fight the next day, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends how much money Dana ships at him.
Yeah, exactly.
So, can you talk about your contract at all? How hard was it to negotiate a contract with the UFC?
For me coming in, like I think most fighters have a pretty standard contract for the first one. I think I had a 4-fight contract coming in, so I think, you know, at that point there's not much room for negotiating unless you're like an exceptional piece where, you know, so you have a big name or you're coming a big name from another organization. But yeah, so that's perfect standard. So usually you know, you have that first four fights to kind of go off of.
So I guess I was going to say, my next question is going to be, is it more like a hockey or a football contract? You know, the hockey contracts are guaranteed when you're signed. They have to give you the fights. Seems like UFC can just cut you at any time, really. So if you have a 4-fight contract, you get paid for 4 fights no matter what, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, well, you have 4 fights, and then, you know, you get paid per fight, but I don't know if that's something I should probably know more about. That's what I'm involved in, but I think they can cut you at any time, but or it's like, you know, after your 3rd fight, you start negotiating for your next contract. So I don't know. This is probably a reason why I have good managers, so they can deal with that.
Yeah.
I obviously don't know much about that, but yeah, I don't know. I think they can cut you at any time because I've heard people have 2 UFC fights and then get cut, and I'm sure they had more than a 2-fight contract.
Definitely. And I just wondered about that, like if they have to make some kind of payment to you guys or how that works if they cut you.
Yeah, apparently I heard someone say that it's hard for the fighters to break the contract, but they can break it whenever they want.
Yeah, that's why you need a union. I'm a union rep where I work, and I'd be more than happy to help you guys in any way that I could.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone's too scared to join.
Right.
They're like, because they're all scared of UFC, and all the fighters are all like, yeah, I want it. They're like, okay, let's all petition for it. And they're like, well, no, I don't want to because I'm too scared.
Do you have any involvement in the union?
No. I mean, to be honest, I just got, you know, since I've just only had 2 fights, one was on pretty short notice, you know, I'm just kind of new to it. So I'm just kind of learning all this stuff as I go.
All right, I got one more money question, and I'll leave you alone with the money. What do you think about the Reebok deal, and how is it going to help you or hurt you?
I mean, for the Reebok deal, you know, per fight, obviously, you're not going to, we don't make that much money, you know, especially me being new into the UFC. It goes by how many fights you have. You know, so they're like, oh, yeah, here's a bunch of Reebok clothes, and here's a check from Reebok after your fight. They're like, I made more money in sponsors in my first untelevised pro fight than I did for this. But now I'm on, you know, the first fight I was like, I'm on Fox and I don't make any money. But the only positive thing I will say is because you don't get those easy sponsors, you know, just for your logo on your shorts during the fight, it kind of forces you as a fighter to look out into other options for, you know, for making money, and kind of then you're forced to find companies and work with companies that you actually really connect with and brands that you connect for, not rather than just their logo on it. So then, you know, hopefully you can build a better relationship where in the long run you do more things with them and maybe get paid more than just getting the logo on. So in the short run, it's not that great, but hopefully in the long run, if you hustle and you find other companies or other type of money sources, you know, and then I think it'll help you.
I mean, I think it's a great deal for the UFC. I just find it very unfair for you guys that are fighting.
Yeah, it's always funny. We're like, oh, you look at like a UFC fight, you see the logo. UFC has all the, you know, they said they didn't want the logos all over the shorts because it looks bad. But if you look at the octagon, it looks the same thing. Like they have all the different logos from all the companies all over the octagon. So it's like, oh, so the UFC can do it, but we can't do it.
Not only that, didn't they make the sponsors pay the UFC money too to sponsor a fighter in the UFC to wear that brand?
Well, that's what they were doing before. Yeah, they said something that was like an entry, like, so say you were a company who wanted to put your logo on, you had to first pay the UFC like $100,000 or something crazy like that, and then you can sponsor. And I don't even know if that was like yearly or how long that was, but yeah, it's like they definitely don't really. They have a thing. They don't want the fighters making money. It seems like.
No, it's easier to control you guys if they control how much money you get and when you get it and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, when you think of like if any other sport was like that, it's like it's insane.
That's one of the things Joe Rogan talks about. I totally believe too. You guys are the product. There is no fights without you guys, and you deserve a bigger amount of the pie that the UFC is bringing in. And that's why the Reebok deal really sucks for you guys.
Yeah, I think that helps for the sponsors. As far as how much like fighters get paid for, it was interesting. I've been talking about this with a few people. Like they're like, oh, fighters don't get paid enough. But if you think about it for the things, like, if you look at someone that's like, some fighter that no one knows, he's not saying he's not a good fighter, but he's fighting on the prelims, like on Fox. No one knows who he is. He's got, 5,000 followers on Instagram and stuff. He's getting paid, say he's getting paid 15 and 15 for that. That's kind of a lot of money for someone that no one knows who they are. I mean, at the end of the day, it is kind of like an entertainment thing. So, like, in football, like, everyone knows who they are and stuff, and that's a huge company. So I think, like, in the lower end, the fighters at the bottom, we're getting paid pretty decent for what we're doing. But then if you look at, like, how much, I think the fighters like Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, and then I feel like they're getting gypped because they're actually bringing in money. People are buying the fights and spending money on UFC because of those fighters. So no one's really buying UFC to watch, some of those fighters that are on the bottom of the card.
Okay, I got a question for you. If you can, what are you going to make for this fight? At least disclose what you're going to make for this fight.
It's 15 and 15.
So 15 and 15, 30,000. What does your camp probably cost you?
Well, if it's 15 and say you have 30, you're taking out about like 43% in taxes at the end of the year.
Right.
And then until you pay your coaches out and stuff, I always say whatever it is, it's pretty much cut in half.
Definitely. So you
pay coaches and managers out, and that's just for your taxes, coaches and managers for that fight. That's not training expenses and the fact that you're not working during the whole camp. So it's like, okay, if I win, it's 15. But that if you lose and you get 15, now I'm cutting that in half. Now you're looking at 7.
Right. And
if people don't look at it, they don't understand. They see it. They're like, oh, wow. Oh, wow, they get paid $100,000. They're really good. They get paid $100,000 for one fight. Well, no, they probably got about, if you take out the taxes and coaches and managers, it's about 50. And then that was like a 10-week camp, and then if they only fight twice a year, they're the top level of the sport and they're getting paid that much. It's, with no benefits or anything.
This is why I'm making my case that you guys are not getting paid enough, because you say people aren't.
It's not enough to live off of.
You guys are. You say that people aren't tuning in to watch the opening fights, but I watch every fight on the card, and everyone I know watches every fight on the card, and they don't care if your name is John Jones or your name is Katlyn Chookagian, and they can't say your name and shit, or they don't care if you're some nobody they don't know. You could be any race, religion. If you can fight and you can put on a show, then they're going to be tuning in to watch, whether it's the beginning card, the ending card, the middle of the card. It doesn't matter. So all you guys together make the overall UFC product. This isn't boxing where people tune in for the main event. I think the fighter pay needs to be much more for everybody, because there are so many associated costs that you are paying. You're paying a crazy amount of taxes. Depending what state you're in, your taxes are probably different too, right? Yeah. When you come to New York, you're going to get raped on the taxes. I'm sorry to say.
Right. And then if you look at something like like I fought in the Madison Square Garden, the 205 card, like they were selling like floor seat tickets for like 5 to 10 grand. I was like, okay, I'm like 2 tickets there. I'm like, that's more than my purse. You know what I mean? And they're completely sold out in 2 seconds. And then it's like, I didn't even, when they, each fighter gets like 4 tickets, for your family and friends. That's in the nosebleeds. Like, my parents were all the way up in the nosebleeds, and then I didn't even have a ticket for after the fight. So I had one of my tickets I was going to give to my my Muay Thai coach, and then he ended up being sick and couldn't come. So I had an extra ticket that I was supposed to give to him, and I was like, good thing I had that ticket so I could watch the main card.
They wouldn't let you back in?
Well, they'll let you in, but you're in the back. You're in the backstage, but you're watching it on a TV in like a little cafeteria.
Oh, god damn. They should like hook you up. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they should have some seats for the fighters, right? There's the biggest card ever, the gate and everything. It was like the highest gate, and my parents are sitting in the nosebleeds and I'm sitting up there with them so I can watch the rest of the fights, only because I didn't end up giving away that extra ticket.
God damn, I can't believe they don't let the fighters come back and watch the fight. I mean, if every level of fighting that I've been involved with, obviously I'm not on a high level, but we've done King of the Cage, we do all the shows, and the fighters get the bracelets, and they can go back up and you know, find some seats or,
yeah,
or
we
do
could
whatever.
go in the back, and they have like a little cafeteria area, but you're sitting on at a table watching the fights on the TV.
Man, god damn. See, they're missing out on an opportunity to sell the fighters too, because when they advertise you, they're advertising their own product. So you guys should be back out in the crowd and be like, here she is. It's not that violent of sport. She's out watching, you know, her other friends fight or you know, watching the great fights. It was just great TV too, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
God damn. This is going to be a great podcast. No one ever talked about that before. I didn't even know that happened. I thought you guys just would go back in and watch the fights.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe too, because that you know, that was at Madison Square Garden. It was all crazy and stuff. But yep.
God damn, Dana White, hook these people up. What's going on?
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't. I'm trying to get Sean Shelby on, so I probably shouldn't say so much stuff, right?
Yeah, wait till after you get him on and then say stuff.
No, I can't do that. Whatever. If I ever get him on, I'm gonna talk to him about this. I'm gonna talk to him just about you not getting a ticket back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck that. You deserve a ticket. You went in there and you sweat and blood and tears. God damn.
Yeah. Yep.
That's like upsetting.
We just got to a restaurant. You know, and
all right.
We're just sitting down, so I was gonna eat something real quick. Is that okay?
That's fine. Caitlin's got more important shit to do. She's gonna go eat. That's the end of this Caveman's Corner. Hopefully, maybe you can come on again. Is Kyle gonna be with you when you come back?
Yeah. He'll be there for fight week and everything.
Yeah. After the fight, if you guys got some time, you should come in the studio. We're probably about 30 minutes from the venue where you're gonna fight, and I promise if you guys come in, I'll feed both of you. Like real buffalo food.
We'll be there all fight week, so.
And I'll bring you.
You can come in before or after the fight.
Yeah, well, I want to do it after so I can hook you up.
Okay.
Because I want to get you some beers, and I want to get you that title, and I want to get you some wings. All right? Because you can't come to Buffalo without those three things. And we can just eat and drink while we're doing a podcast, and it'll be the worst one to listen to if you hate chewing.
Yeah, that sounds good. We could do like a fight recap from
Hell yeah. And I'm gonna ask you if they let you back in or not. And if they didn't, I'm gonna.
Hey, but this time I'm just bulldozing through. I don't care.
And we're gonna if they don't let you in, I'm gonna go down there and find out where they are. I'm gonna get beat up by Dana White because he probably beat me up still.
All right, yeah, that's cool.
All right, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you. It's like an hour long already. I appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great time. Tell Judah and Bubba thank you, and I appreciate your time. All right.
All right, thank you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that was UFC star. Caveman's Corner is a rising promotion. We're doing well. It feels all weird being here alone in the office. So I'm going to get out of here before Dana White finds me and beats the shit out of me. Thank you guys for listening and enjoy the podcast. Make sure you like and share it on Facebook. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube because that's how I make the 13 cents I make an episode. All right? Have a great one, guys. Enjoy the fights. UFC 210 in Buffalo. How the fuck am I supposed to do an Easter egg without Ray? What the fuck is going on? That's all Ray's good for. He's not here to do it. God.